So last week I was laying in bed looking up at the ceiling and I thought to myself, my goodness, does that popcorn make this room look dark, depressing, and dated? And then I thought, how hard could it be to remove it? In this video, I'm going to keep it real with you and share my first-hand experience of DIY popcorn ceiling removal after watching a couple of how-to videos. This is my second popcorn ceiling removal, so I am in no way a professional, and I am here to share with you some of the challenges I faced, so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. First things first, if your house was built prior to 1980 or you don't know when your house was built, do not attempt this without consulting a professional, because prior to 1980s, houses were built with lots and lots of asbestos. And we want to keep the asbestos in the ceiling, not inside of us, because once asbestos gets inside of you, you're going to get yourself a first-class ticket to an iron lung. So once you can confirm that your house is not filled with asbestos, you can proceed with this project. This house was built in 2000. So now that my area is prepped, I'm ready to start scraping the popcorn off the ceiling. And to do this, I'm using a taping knife. And then I'm also going to use a little bit of water to spray this down. It's going to kick up a lot of dust, so it's very important to have eye protection. And I'm also going to be wearing a respirator to protect my lungs. Okay, this is really hard to watch because it's like looking back on all my mistakes that I made. I was very eager to start, and here we go. I'm just digging right in there. Right off the bat, I'm running into problems because the taping knife is having a really difficult time scraping the ceiling. So I'm adding more water, soaking that sucker, not realizing that it takes some time for the water to absorb into the ceiling. One thing that I'm definitely noticing here is that you gotta have a special touch when you're working with the ceiling. You want it to be just wet enough, but not too wet, because once it gets too wet, it's really easy to start digging into that drywall. I guess that's why they call it a drywall and not a wet wall. So you can see here, this is where the joint tape started coming off the ceiling from too much water. You don't want to do that. So I've come up with a system that makes this removal much easier, and that is you spray it down first, and then this is the key part, you wait 5 minutes. After that, you come in with a scraper and it slides off like butter. And I was moving right along until I hit another obstacle, ceiling fan. You see, I was very eager to get started. And I had an issue with the ceiling fan. I left it on for as long as I could because I'm a little scared of electricity. But I triple made sure that the breaker was off, that there was no electrical running to the ceiling fan. Then I put my big girl pants on and I took it out of the ceiling, and let me tell you, it made my process so much faster, not having to work around the blades. Learn from my mistakes. If something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. Removing the popcorn from the ceiling is probably the easiest part of this project. It took me about 3 hours to do this one room, and that's with taking long breaks, losing screws, taking down ceiling fans. This is what it looked like after I removed the popcorn. And you can see little patches of where there's still some of that popcorn spray residue. So I used a wet rag to wipe it off the ceiling. I also used a wet sponge to go over the taped joints. I did not want to use a taping knife on those because I do not want to expose the joint tape and then have to retape the whole ceiling. And look at that ceiling all over the floor. This was the most difficult part of the whole process, the cleanup, and it took the longest. The amount of dust that this kicked up was incomprehensible. In the air, in my hair, dust everywhere. I'm using a broom. A shop vac definitely would have made this easier. Do not use your fancy Dyson because you will ruin it. There was dust behind the plastic even though I taped everything down, so that was a surprise to me. Some witchery right there. If you are doing this in a bedroom that you plan on occupying later on, or if you have pets, I would highly recommend staying out of that room for about 24 hours and allowing the dust to settle. And the dust was everywhere. It got on my walls. And if you're planning on painting your walls, you have to make sure that you wash and clean that dust off because that will prevent your paint from sticking. It is day 3 of the popcorn ceiling removal. As you can see, the popcorn has been exfoliated off the ceiling and it looks pretty nice from far away. But once you start looking closely, you will notice little imperfections, like one right here, one right here. So yes, I could go and paint this and probably be done with it. But if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it right. So I'm going to take that extra step to make sure it looks really nice and skim the ceiling with joint compound, therefore smoothing it out and laying a foundation for that really nice, beautiful flat finish. And the ceiling skim, that deserves its own video. So if you want to be notified when that drops, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Now let's go to the final reveal. This is what the ceiling looks like now after it's been skimmed, primed, and painted. This is a corner that gave me trouble. I would say that this project was absolutely worth it. How hard was it? I would give it a 3 out of 10, with 1 being easy, like hammering a nail into a wall, and 10 being hard, like nailing spaghetti onto a ceiling. The reason that I gave it that rating is because there was some difficulty with taking down the ceiling fan and the cleanup, which honestly wasn't that bad. So thanks for watching. Leave any comments. I'd love to answer your questions, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.